Welcome to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher, where we take you behind the scenes with peak performers to learn what makes them tick and discover how you can apply their lessons to your life. I'm your host, Molly Fletcher. Today's guest, Inky Johnson, dreamed of playing in the NFL to make a better life for his family. As a college football player at the University of Tennessee, Inky was on his way to achieving his dream when an injury changed everything. A routine tackle turned into a life-threatening injury that ended Inky's football career and permanently paralyzed his right arm. Instead of being defeated, Inky channeled his hardship into a powerful message of overcoming adversity. As a popular motivational speaker, Inky empowers audiences to embrace the daily challenges of life and live with greater purpose. This is a special episode because my daughter Emma joins me for part of it to ask Inky a few questions herself. She introduced me to Inky, and we can't wait to share his incredible story with you. Get ready to be inspired. Here's my conversation with Inky Johnson. So Inky Johnson, it is such a treat to have you on. As I told you when we were just starting, my oldest daughter came home from school one day bragging about a video she'd seen at school about this incredible guy named Inky Johnson. And I said, well, I got to check this guy out. He sounds amazing. And I did. And you are amazing. You are a gift to so many. And so here we are. And my daughter Emma is joining us. She is almost 16. And it's exciting to have her joining the podcast today. For sure. So let's dig right in. So, Inky, tell us a little bit about your childhood and how it shaped, who you are today.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I just want to say thanks to both you and Emma. It's a true honor and a privilege to be on. And my grandmother, one of my grandmothers on my father's side was named Emma. So I got a special connection with that name, Emma. But I'm an Atlanta kid, grew up right in the heart of Atlanta, a southeast corner to be exact, in a neighborhood by the name of Kirkwood. And at the time when I came up in Kirkwood, you had everything under the sun, from drugs, gangs, violence. And I was born to a mother at 16 years old, and I was being raised in a two-bedroom home, and there was 14 of us living there. And I was aunts, uncles, cousins, and my family's dynamic. Nobody really valued education, because of the circumstances. It was so extreme that, people were doing different things. And so when I came along, I saw the collateral damage, both good and bad. And I'm the type of person, I'm very loyal, but I wanted to make people proud, and when I say I'm very loyal, there was a lot of people that helped me out very early in my life. My mother was working a double shift at Wendy's. My father came into my life a little bit later, and me and his connection now is great. But in my earlier years, when I had this dream to go to the NFL, and I would be out in the street, running from light pole to light pole, I would be in the park late at night. My mother would get off her double shift at Wendy's, and I would be in this park asking my mother, can she sit in the car and turn on her car lights? And I would be doing different drills, chasing this dream to go to the NFL. But I also had a coach, that started me out in sports, first white guy I ever met in my life, and he came driving down the street. I dropped the kid off at practice a few blocks away from where I lived. And he was exiting the neighborhood, and me and my cousins were in the street, and he just stopped, and asked us basically, man, would we like to play football on grass? And that guy changed my life. Him and an 8th grade math teacher and basketball coach who ended up walking my wife down the aisle at our wedding. And so I had people along the way that saw things in me, and I couldn't see it in myself, and it shaped the trajectory of my life, but also the way that I live my life up until this day.
Wow, Inky, so powerful. And I've watched the SportsCenter feature on you, and I still can visualize the lights of your mother's car and you doing push-ups in the grass that they played in that video. It It is remarkable. It is remarkable. And you started, sort of speaking of football, you started playing football at 7. Tell me this, I know football was an incredible part of your childhood, no question, and you started playing at 7. What did football mean to you then as a child?
It was a means of expression for me at the time. Football was a game to where I was dealing with things in my personal life, things in terms of, why my father wasn't in the same house as me. Not only my father, but my cousins that were sleeping on the floor beside me.
Mm-hmm.
We were sleeping on pallets on the floor, and none of our fathers were present. And so trying to understand that whole dynamic, and also just the circumstances of being in a 2-bedroom home with 14 people, trying to eat, rushing to try to get a meal, and sometimes missing meals. And so when I stepped out on the football field or played the game, it was like a release for me. I wanted to go to the NFL, but it felt great. It was a game you can inflict violence and not get in trouble for it. I loved every bit of that.
Uh-huh.
But it was also a process, and there was structure to it. It brought discipline to my life. Most importantly, it introduced me into a process of, if I did things the right way and I worked hard and I stayed disciplined, it could yield a result that, went far past the game of football, that can transcend the game, but also it can be implemented into other areas and aspects of my life. And so early on, when the coaches were trying to make me understand that, and they were showing me that through different examples, I fell in love with that. I fell in love with the process of football more so than the results of football. And so it was great for me.
I heard you talk about that, and I couldn't agree with you more when you embraced the process. Was that something that you recognized at such a young age, the power of the process?
Absolutely. And it was vital for me, because I was in a circumstance where, the people were nice, people were great that were around me, but it wasn't much discipline. And when I got involved in football, in the process of that, what it brought to me was discipline. It brought structure, it brought dedication, it brought commitment, and it brought that thing of doing something so many times. It's like Saban says, I love it. He says, we do something, not so we can't get it wrong, but so we can get it right, or something along those lines. And so my coach, he would make me do things so many times. And I remember I questioned him one day, and I was like, Coach, man, I think I got it. Like, you sure I got to do it again? And he was like, oh, you think I don't know football, right? And I was like, no, I'm not saying that, but do you think I need to do it 20 times in order to get it? And he made me do it 20 more times. And when we got in the game, he told me, he said, Inky, if you do this the right way, and he used to have a stopwatch on the sideline. He said, if you do this the right way and you hit it at this time, this was when I was a kid. He said, if you hit it at this time, it'll be a touchdown. And I kid you not, every time I ran this play, I was a running back. Every time I ran this play, and he would hold up the stopwatch. And that was signifying to me, you did it at the right time and you did it the right way. It was a touchdown. And so for me, in my personal life, anytime he told me something that I needed to do, I trusted the process of what he was telling me, because early on I saw the results that it yielded.
Wow. Yeah, no question. I'm a huge Saban is a big process guy too. So totally get it. Hear ya. Hey, Emma, fire off a couple of your questions you had for Inky.
Okay, so my first question is, since you have young kids, any mistakes that you've made where you thought your priorities weren't straight or your focus wasn't where you wanted it to be? What stuff do you tell your kids so that they can not make any mistakes that you feel like you've made as a child?
Absolutely. Early on, Emma, I struggled with my relationship with my father. Like, I held on to rage. I held on to anger because he wasn't present early on. He would come in and out, and it was glimpses. And I held on to that for a long time. And so when he was trying to come in early on, I kind of shut him out, right? Because I didn't understand it. And so I always talk to my children and just young people in general about the power of forgiveness, right? And when I sat down and actually had dialogue with my father about what had happened, I didn't even realize he was, in high school as well, obviously, when it happened, but I didn't realize he had just lost his mother. His mother had just died. His mother was the only thing he had. And so when his mother died, my mother had got pregnant. And when he lost his mother, he was on his own. He didn't even know how to live. And so he was running, he was scared. And once I understood that, it put me in a different place from a perspective standpoint, but just the power of forgiveness, right? It's like I told a guy, I said, it's like drinking poison and you're expecting the other person to die. It's not going to happen. And it's going to hold you hostage. And so early on, if I just would have forgave a lot earlier, I think that connection with my father could have came a lot earlier. And I would have been in a lot different place. But I think all things work to the good. And so, but I just could have had extra tools in my arsenal and my development as a person.
So how were you able to maintain such a positive outlook in those times?
I'm a big believer at looking at a situation and trying to see the big picture, but also extracting the good. Like, I firmly believe, Emma, that there's a lesson and a blessing in everything that we go through. And most importantly, the ability to learn is a gift, even when pain is your teacher. Because a lot of times when we go through painful things, we like to question it. And we have the right to question it. We have the right to ask, man, why did I have to go through this? Or why did this have to happen to me? Because you look at life and you see great people, and sometimes they go through some crazy stuff. And you're like, man, they didn't deserve that, right? And you try to figure out life. And I've taken the approach of, instead of asking, why me, why not me? Most importantly, what can I learn from it? And if I can learn something from it and have a perspective to where I can extract something good from it, I can apply it to other areas of my life, and it can shape my perspective in a way to where I can add value to the next person that goes through a situation like that. And so it's solely based upon what can I learn from situations that don't play out in my favor.
All right, so take us back to that day on September 9th, 2006, and how that injury changed your life.
The thing about that day, when I go back and trace it, I was in my junior year at the University of Tennessee. I was 20 years old. From a football perspective, I was playing the game in a way that, I had never played it before. My IQ of the game was extremely high. Everything was clicking. Everything was going great. And when I came out that day, we were playing against Air Force. And to be honest, we just thought we were going to roll over Air Force and get ready for the next game. And that night, after that game, we got the victory, and I found myself in the emergency room fighting for my life, behind a tackle. And I woke up the next morning after surgery, and I couldn't feel my right arm or my right hand. I had staples all through my body, 350 to be exact. And I had been cut twice through my right ribs, cut on my right chest, right side of my neck, left side of my neck. And my career was over in an instant. And I always tell people the trip part about it is that day, September 9th, I did the same pregame routine, right? I listened to the same music. And like my song was Phil Collins. I could feel it coming in the air tonight, right? Mm-hmm. I listened to it before every game, right? And I listened to it before that game. But I went out and the outcome was different. And it made me appreciate life that much more. Like I tell people all the time, like, you can wake up one day and you can be on top of the world, and you can wake up tomorrow and the world can be on top of you. And everything you work for, you can lose it if you don't approach life with the right mentality, the right spirit, and the right work ethic. And so when that happened, it shifted my life in such a way to where if I could pick one word from the whole situation, it just made me grateful. My right arm and my hand is paralyzed, but my heart isn't. My mentality isn't, my work ethic isn't. I'm grateful to still be here and still be able to impact the world in the way that I do.
Which is in amazing ways, Inky. So, Emma asked you, and I just need to rewind the tape here, because on the 9th of 2006, when you got injured, tell me a little bit more, just so our listeners can hear this, Inky, if they haven't watched some of your stuff. What was that recovery like? Like, take me inside of that a little bit, that journey from the field and that moment to sort of when you were moving around again and when you were starting to see the light, if you will.
That night of September 9th, when the doctor came in the room and told me, he basically said, this kid is about to die. We got to perform emergency surgery. And everything shifted really quick. And so I was like, what happened? He said, you ruptured your subclavian artery in your chest. So I'm like, all right, cool. And when I wake up, I got 6 cuts down my left thigh. I got a cut across the left side of my neck, a cut across the right side of my neck, twice through my right ribs, cut out my right pec, bottom of my armpit to the bottom of my hand, 350 staples in my body. And I'm bandaged from my neck to my knees. And I'm like, man, what is this? Right? And they're like, yeah, we saw the nerve damage in your brachial plexus. And all these things transpired. And the next day, my life was very different. I couldn't feel my arm in my hand. Right? And so they started telling me what happened. They started telling me how I ruptured the artery. They started telling me about my brachial plexus avulsion, which are the nerve roots that come from my spine and basically controls my shoulder, my arm, and my hand. When I made the tackle, I ruptured them. So it pulled them all out. Immediately, it paralyzed my whole right side from my shoulder to my hand. And so when that happened, they gave me every piece of equipment on the face of this planet, probably for a brachial plexus injury. They gave me arm skateboards. They would fly me up to Rochester to the Mayo Clinic and shoot needles and dye into my back. They would strap my arm to different devices and say, hey, Ink, we're not sure if this is going to work, but we're going to see. And they basically put me on a 2-year schedule, 2-year process. And the process didn't guarantee any success. They didn't say at the end of this 2 years, man, you'll probably be able to pick a football up, throw it. You'll probably be able to lift weights. They didn't say that. They said, we're going to put you in a 2-year process and we can't guarantee anything. Again, courage, the ability to start something without any guarantee of success. And so when I looked at it, I said, man, I could start this process and it could crush me, right? I can go in and have hope and faith and nothing happens. And it will be devastating, more devastating probably than the injury. Or I can go in and face this process and say, okay, don't focus on the result. Don't focus on the product, which is the outcome. Don't focus on any of that. Every single day, take it day by day, whatever device they put in front of you, give everything you got to it, even if you're not guaranteed any success, any results, just lock into the process. And what happened probably about a year into the process, I noticed mentally something shifted. Like my mindset was a lot stronger than it was before. And so now, even in my everyday life, it's nothing for me to start something, and I don't need anything guaranteed to me. I don't need anything. I don't need a person saying, oh, if you do this, I don't need any of that. Because I went through a process before with my arm to where it wasn't any guarantee of success. And so when I went through that at the end of the 2 years, I said, you know what, man, thank you all for everything. And I didn't see much improvement. I got some feeling back, but my arm still couldn't move. My fingers still wouldn't flex. And so at the end of the process, I think it was just a process that the Creator took me through to develop me as a man mentally, physically, and spiritually. And it made me a better person. I wouldn't change nothing about it.
I think one of the things people deal with and challenge for all of us, including myself, is being present in the world that we live in with things coming at us, and being present is hard. It's really hard. What I'm almost hearing you say is you are so present in the moments that you're in because you're not worried about where it's going to take you. And you're really not worried about what got you there. Am I picking up on that? I mean, it feels like that to me.
Oh, you're 100% correct. Because the way I view life, Molly, is I almost lost my life in an instant. I was doing what I love. I had been doing it from 7 to 20 years old. And I go out one day and I do the thing that I did every Saturday. And I almost lose my life behind it. Most importantly, I lose it. I lose everything that I was once working for. And so you see how fragile life is. You see, you can work for something and think you got it by the chokehold, you got it controlled, and then you wake up the next day and you don't have any of it. And so even with every single day, like I tell my children every single day, man, the crazy thing about life is somebody that woke up this morning, they're not going to live to see the night, right? Like that's how fragile life is. Somebody that was doing well today, tomorrow their whole life is going to be changed. And so if we can be present with what we have right now, with where we are right now, like we're winning. But the moment we start focusing on things that don't really matter, right, and we start stressing about things that don't really matter, and we're worrying about things that don't really matter, there's a quote that says worrying is a down payment on a problem that you may never have. And a lot of times people spend so much time worrying about things that may never happen to them. But it steals their joy, it steals their peace, it steals their happiness.
Rewind the tape for me a little bit, Inky. Obviously, you have a vision to play football, certainly at the college level as you were aging, as you were getting older, and then, of course, at the NFL level. What was the transition like once you made it to college, right? So you come out of an incredibly difficult childhood that has lots of challenges, of course, and now you're one step closer to living your dream of playing in the NFL. Tell me a little bit about that transition from your childhood life to Tennessee. Rewind that tape for me for a minute.
Absolutely. So I attended Crum High School, and Crum High School in Atlanta is an Atlanta public school. And so at the time, they called it crime high in Atlanta, dropout rate higher than the graduation rate. We didn't even have a real weight room. Like, we had a couple of pieces of equipment, and so we couldn't really do real workouts and things of that nature. I probably played in front of 150 people, every Friday night. We weren't very good. I probably won one or two games, my junior and senior year. And so when I got to Tennessee, and they were like, man, it's over 100,000 fans that's going to be in the stadium. I couldn't believe it. When I got there at the facility and they had the training table, and they had a smoothie section and they gave you like 5 pair of cleats, right? And they give you all this gear and they take you over to the academic center and you got tutors, you got computers, all of this stuff. To me, it was like, man, like, I've made it to this point without this. And so now I get this added to me, like it is a bonus. I'm grateful for it. But I had an attitude of, I also have to prove myself because of where I come from. And so most times I would be in the complex late at night, when guys would leave. I didn't party as much. My roommates at the time were Gerard Mayo, who played for the Patriots, Ramon Foster, who's now playing for the Steelers, and Robert Ayers, he played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Giants. And the guys used to call us the old man gang, right? They were like, those guys are like old men, right? They just worked out, go to class. And when I got there and I started playing at a high level and things started looking up to me, I was like, man, like, I'm one shot away from making it to the NFL. When my coach came to talk to me my junior year, Larry Slade, and he was an amazing leader, and Coach Foreman was an amazing leader. I was like, man, I get a shot at my childhood dream, and I really thought that it was about to happen, and I would be able to help my family from the dream of going to the NFL. And so when my injury happened, it kind of made me look at everything a lot differently.
Gosh, I can only imagine. I mean, you pivoted, but how did you pivot? It feels like when I listen and I watch sort of the videos of you, Inky, and I learn about your journey, it appears as if you pivoted from this injury and recovered and had this new sort of vision and attitude and positivity so quickly. Where did that come from?
I think it came partly from my mother and my support staff, just coming up, those people that I speak about. When I went through my injury, it was by far the toughest moment of my life. I went back and forth from Knoxville, Tennessee to the Mayo Clinic, for years. And I had a brachial plexus avulsion and I ruptured a subclavian artery in my chest. And so the thing that a lot of people are not aware of about a brachial plexus avulsion is a lot of times they can't give you an answer. And so they can't give you, hey, in 2 years, this will happen. You'll get this function back. They'll just do surgery. Or if you're interested, they'll do something. Or if they think it might work or might not, they'll do it and say, hey, we don't know, but we're going to give it a shot. And so you deal with this thing of you're getting surgery, you're getting different things done, but you're going through a process without any guarantee. And so it made me have a different level of courage. I believe courage is the ability to start something without any guarantee of success. And so as I was going through this process, I didn't have any guarantee of success. I didn't have a guarantee that my arm and my hand would work again. All I had was to get up every single day, put one foot in front of the other, and make my situation what I thought it was going to be. And that was, at the time, I wasn't going to quit, and I just wanted to finish out my education. I wanted to graduate. But I had these people around me, my coaches, my mentor, my mother. And I'll never forget the defining moment for me, I would say, was I was in the hospital one day. I had my father there, my mother. I was talking to my coach and my 8th grade math teacher and basketball coach. And I just apologized to everybody. And I was like, man, I'm so sorry. Right. And they were looking at me and they were saying to me, like, sorry for what?
Right.
And I was like, I'm sorry. I didn't make it to the NFL, man. I didn't make it. And they were looking at me and they just asked me the question. They was like, man, you think we did what we did for you so you can make it to an NFL? I said, yeah, I thought that was part of it. It was like, man, bump the NFL. We don't even watch the NFL like that. It's like, we did what we did for you so you could become a great man one day. We just want you to pay it forward. We don't want anything from you. We just want you to pay forward what we did for you for another person. And when they said that, the light bulb went off for my life. You know, I got up out of that hospital and that was just solely focused on serving. I was solely focused on making my life mean something outside of this injury in the game of football, because a lot of people, they were closing the book on my life at that incident. And my mother said to a doctor one day when he asked, hey, man, what's next? And my mother said, this is only the beginning.
Ugh.
You know, one bad chapter doesn't define the book.
Because in the hospital, didn't the doc tell you it'd be 45 days and 3 days later you were walking out?
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely. He said 45 to 60 days I'll be in the hospital. And 3 days later I walked out.
I love the way you talk about that. You say, Doc, with all due respect, and no
All due
disrespect to you, Doc, you say, which is so cool. You know, and you talk about your dream of the NFL. One of the things that has bubbled up for me as I've gotten to know you is that the NFL was never about you. It was always about making a better life for your family and for your mom and for the people that helped you in the process. How much harder did it make it as you shifted and pivoted your life and your focus to, I mean, it wasn't going to be the NFL and the multi-million-dollar contract, right? Now I know that you do support and serve your family in lots of different ways, right? Through the platform that you've created for yourself, from turning this, what the world would view as a negative, into really a positive. And I think you talk about how you probably impact more people's lives in the journey of your life now than maybe you ever would have in the NFL.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about what the days look like after and the journey to live in the space that you live in now and serve the way that you serve now. And you speak, I know, all over the country, and you serve people in lots of different ways. Get us inside of your world now, and how you leaned into this change, right, and this new journey and found all the good and the gifts in it.
You know, to be honest with you, I never knew that I would speak. You know, I never wanted to do this. This was never on my radar, to be honest. I thought that I would become a coach. You know, I got my master's in sports psychology. I felt as if this would be a great transition. I still loved the game. I wanted to impact young men through the tool of football. I just thought it would be great. And so I started down the path to become a graduate assistant. And then I ended up having to move back to Atlanta. And so when I moved back to Atlanta, I contacted a guy about working for the city of Atlanta at the rec center in my neighborhood. I wanted to create leadership curriculums for the kids in my environment that grew up the way that I grew up. I wanted to help them, but I just wanted to work at the rec center. Nothing more, nothing less. I remember me and my wife talked about it. I said, whatever they pay me, I'll be cool. Like if they give me $25,000, $30,000, I'm cool. I just want to work in my community, impact the kids. And when I got back, the guy that I had been talking to, he just disappeared. I called him, emailed him, never heard from him again. And at the time, I just had my book and I had moved back and I was living in my wife's grandmother's home, right? And I was feeling like the biggest failure because I felt as if I had just made it from this Kirkwood, this community, and made it to college, did well. And now I'm right back in this neighborhood, a couple of streets over. And I was self-assessing, trying to figure out what happened. And I had my book. I had recently completed my book, Inky, Amazing Story of Faith and Perseverance. And that was the only thing I had. And so every single day, my wife was a teacher at the time. And she was getting up, going to work, and we'd get up and pray. And I got to tell you this story because it changed my life. Mm-hmm. I got up one morning and I said to my wife, I'm going to meet Oprah Winfrey. And I had my book. Right. And so my wife said to me, she was like, oh, okay. She said, you know Oprah? And I was like, nope. She was like, you know anybody at Harpo Studios? I was like, nope. And she was like, you sure about this? I was like, yes, ma'am. She said, go for it. right? And I had like $200 to my name, right? And so I was like, okay, I put on this big suit I had, and I went out, got in my truck, and I started driving, literally, to Chicago. And I called my buddy Jeff in Chattanooga. He's in Knoxville. He picks up. I said, Jeff, you're not going to believe it. I'm going to meet Oprah. And he was like, oh, man, you know Oprah? And I was like, no. And he was like, okay. He was like, I see what this is. He said, I know you're ambitious. Call me when you get to Knoxville, because that's not going to happen, man. And I don't want to, you to go up there and get disappointed. I called him when I got to Knoxville. He picked up. He said, you're still going, aren't you? I said, yeah. He said, pick me up. I want to just go with you so you don't be disappointed. And so we get up to Knoxville. Jeff, an attorney, he's well off. So he says to me, Inky, I'll get us a room. I said, all right, cool. He gets us a room. We get up the next morning, and we get a taxi. We get over to Harpo. I get out. Jeff says he's going to get a cup of coffee. He's sure this won't be long. And so I ran in every door. This was around the time her last shows were happening. I ran in every door with my book, and I would say, hey, I'm Inky Johnson, drove up from Atlanta. Want to give Oprah my book. And people would be like, hey, man, get out of here. We don't do that, right? We can't do that. And I was like, man, I thought you guys were nice. You give away cars. Like, what's up, right? And I went around the back of the building, and I kid you not, Molly, I went around the back of the building. I sat in the parking lot, and I was like, man, my wife is going to kill me when I get home. And I get up, and I walk around the side of the building. And at this point, everybody's cleared out. They've went in the building. And I'm walking down the side of this building, and it's nobody but me, Oprah, and her security guard. They're walking toward me. And I get up, and I fix my suit. I start walking toward her, and I'm thinking, surely she's going to get the security to move me out of the way. They keep walking. She walks up to me, and she grabs my suit. And she says, this is a nice suit. And I think she's just trying to see that I have a gun or a knife or anything. It's two sizes too big, right? And I was like, thank you. I said, I'm Inky. I drove up from Atlanta. Wanted to give you my book. And she's like, oh, that's nice. And she grabbed it. I said, can I please take a picture with you? We took a picture. And she was like, I got to get in and do my show. I said, thank you. And so I was walking off, and her security guard said to me, he said, hey, young man, can you come here? And this was after she went in the building. I said, yes, sir. I walked over to him. He said, I just want to let you know that never happens. I said, what never happens? He said, what just happened never happened. He said, usually she'll send me up, clear them out, or tell them, hey, send the book here, or something like that. But that never happened. And he said, I'm not telling you you're going to be on a book club. I'm not saying you're going to be on a show, any of that. I just want you to know what just happened never happened. I said, thank you. I send the picture to friends, family, put it up on Facebook. People start asking, are you going to be in a show, be in a book club? I was like, I don't know. I really don't care. And it's like, what do you mean you don't know and you don't care? I said, because if I can wake up one morning from Atlanta, Georgia, say I'm going to meet Oprah,
right,
and life conspires and the creator conspires and put me front and center and put my book in her hand, I don't care what she did with the book, right? Just that level of faith and that test, it took the trajectory of my life to another level. It made me look at things differently. That night when I prayed, my prayer was simple. It said, Creator, I don't know what you want me to do, but I submit. If you want me to speak, cool. If you want me to coach, cool. I don't know what you want me to do. I'm ready to serve. I was at that point in my life. I had been redirected, right? Through the game of football, I got redirected to Atlanta. And so at that point, when I fully submitted, opportunities came to share, informal, right? I just went to serve. And I still like to think I'm serving 12 years later, even until this day. Right? It's not really speaking for me. For me, I'm living out my life's work, my mission. Right? This was something that was planned a long time ago, and the only person that didn't see it in my life was me. Right? And so I'm just thankful and grateful that it worked out, and I was able to help my family and still help my family, help my mother. I didn't change the target. I just changed my aim.
I love that. You didn't change the target. You changed your aim. And I have to ask, right? I mean, did anything evolve there with Oprah in any way?
Nothing, never happened.
Okay,
no,
that's okay.
I think that was one of those moments that, you know how you go through some things in life or something happens, and it's just one of those moments that's for you and your journey. And I think that was a moment that was just for me and my journey and my development.
What do you think it was about that moment that made it different for Oprah? I mean, for the security guards to look around and say that never happens. What is it about you, Inky, right? Because I think that's what it is that made that happen. That was about the way that you connected or the way that she saw something in you.
My mother and my grandmother, they just instilled in me a level of respect, and most importantly, being grounded. Like they used to tell me a long time ago, like, in order to be humble, you got to have something. Like you don't have anything yet, so you got to be grounded, right? And so they just instilled in me respect and being grounded, right? And I used to always say, I want to be humble when I was younger. It was like, in order to be humble, you got to have something. You don't have anything yet. And so be grounded, right? When you get a little something, then you can have humility about what you have and you can understand where it comes from. But just a level of respect to everybody and approaching people and being grounded and having a level of humility. And I think when you're real, it's like my pastor used to say, you try the spirit by the spirit, and hearts connect with hearts, and you can go out with some people, and I'm sure you do it every single day. You do it on your podcast. Just when you speak and talk to people, you automatically connect, because you're coming from a real and authentic place. And I think when people meet me, they can sense that. It's like when I was telling you earlier, I was like, you can ask whatever question you want to ask. We're all good. My life's an open book. And so I think people can sense that, and ultimately people respect that.
When did you realize that your story had power? Like when did you start to realize, man, I think that there's something here that is connecting and serving other people, right? With your mission in life clearly being to serve. How did that bubble up and become clear to you that I need to spend my time here because I'm sharing something that's serving and connecting?
I was with Eric Berry that plays for the Chiefs. He's a good friend of mine. He's like a little brother to me. Number 29 for the Kansas City Chiefs. And we had did a signing at West Town Mall in Knoxville, just, signing books, signing different, UT stuff. And we left the event, and we were the two last ones to leave. And so when he went to go to his car, I was walking, and a gentleman came over to me, and he was crying. And at the time, he was saying to me, "Thank you." And I said, "Thank you." I said, "Sir, if you don't mind me asking, what are you thanking me for?" And he said, "I saw the story on the news." And he said, "I was going through some things in my personal life, and I got a wife, and I got 3 daughters." And he said, "I was about to leave." And he said, "I saw you making humor of your situation, laughing." And he said, "If that guy can stand in there and fight what he's going through, surely I can stand there and fight for my family." And he hugged me and he left, right? And I was walking off, and I just said to myself, like, man, if you represent this to people, you got to take your life a little bit more serious. What you represent, the example that you set, not that I was living, crazy or reckless, but just how I carry myself every single day, right? The moments of destiny when we meet people, whether it's on an elevator, whether it's in a restroom, whether it's at a restaurant, just the moments of destiny, and carrying ourselves a certain type of way because we're always an example to somebody.
No question, no question. Well, we have so many business people, Inky, that listen to this podcast. And, the world is filled with people every day, work, personal, whatever, that are dealing with challenges, right? That are going through adversity. What advice do you give people that maybe have things like that right now in their life that they're going through that you clearly went through at an incredibly human level? What do you tell business people and people in general? Like you said, hearts are hearts. So tell me that.
First and foremost, be grateful for it and trust it. Trust the adversity, trust the opposition, because I firmly believe if it's there for a reason. It's there to serve a purpose. But more importantly, see it as it is, but not worse than it is. Because a lot of times when we go through things, we see it as, man, it's big mountains, and sometimes if we look at it with a different perspective, like I always tell people, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. And a lot of times when we go through something, our perspective is that of, why me, right? And it's valid. We probably didn't do anything to deserve it, right? Like I told my son the other day, I was playing with my 7-year-old son, right? And he wanted me to do something that I couldn't do, right? We was throwing a ball, and he wanted me to do something and I couldn't do it, right? And it crushed me to my spirit that I couldn't do it. I'm a competitor. Like my whole life, I've been an athlete, so it crushed me that I couldn't do it. And so he says to me, like, "Dad, man, why did your arm have to get hurt?" Right? Like if your arm didn't get hurt, man, you'll be able to do that. And he was just being a kid, right? He was saying it, like with the positive, tone to it, right? And I shared with him, son, sometimes you got to go through things that you don't want to go through or that you didn't necessarily ask for, but because of it, you'll be made a better person if you could just embrace it and see it with the right perspective. But with that comes with seeing it as it is, but not worse than it is. Most importantly, trust the opposition, trust the adversity, because if it's there, as much as we don't want it to be there, it's there for a purpose. It's funny. In life, the same thing we laugh about, we can cry about. Same thing we cry about, we can laugh about. It's just a matter of timing. All right, you can go through something today that can make you cry. And next Monday, you'll laugh about the same thing that made you cry the previous Monday.
Man, Inky, we need like an Inky one-liner book. You know what I'm saying? Like you have all, you can't see the picture in the frame. I'm trying to jot all these down. I don't normally listen to my own podcast, but I'm going to have to listen to this one again and get all these incredible nuggets. Good Lord, they're awesome. You know, you run around, I know, the world, the country, and talk to professional athletes, to Fortune 500 companies. Tell me a little bit about what is your message when you're inside? And I'm sure it's different with athletes than it is with companies, but can you share that a little bit? Because I am sure there's a whole lot of people thinking, I need this guy.
It's different, but the overall tone of my message is that of just being grateful. You know, whatever you do, whoever you have around you, every single day being grateful for the gift of life. Because so many times we can get up and we can do something, and when things don't go right, like the character that we once possessed, the drive that we once possessed, the skill set that we once possessed, right? When things don't go right or people don't get what they want or people don't get the validation that they want, then you see their true character, right? Like the first time I saw a guy quit football, I called my grandmother. I couldn't believe it. Right? I was like, a guy is quitting, right? And I was like, man, are you really about to quit? And the guy said to me, yes. I said, why? He said, because coach was talking to me and he said this and said that. I said, so you didn't get the validation you wanted. I said, I thought you started this a long time ago before you even met coach. I said, so you're not doing this to preserve your legacy, right? You're not doing this for dignity and integrity. You're not doing this so when somebody looks at you and see you, like you represent something. Like if you're fortunate enough to produce seeds, like children in this world, like your lineage, what you stand for, one day how they will be looked at because of how you handled your business. Like you're not doing it for that. And he was like, no. I said, I really don't understand it. And so every single day, not taking what you do for granted and giving everything you got to it. Like when I spoke about adversity, it's there for a purpose. Even if you don't want it, it's there to serve a purpose. If you're in a position you don't want to be in, it's there to serve a purpose. And so if we're in a position, first and foremost, never complain about something that you're not willing to change. More importantly, if you're there, why not give everything you got to it? You're there anyway.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. And you talk about when the injury happened and, you know, you had a plan. You were clear. I got 10, 11 more games. I'm going to sign a big time contract. I'm a first round pick. I mean, I'm going to pay my mama's house off and I'm going to be living the dream and taking care of my mom who's given me so much. And then you took a left turn. And in life, people deal with change so much. What's the message that you tell people as it relates to leaning into change? Because you dealt with it literally head on.
I would say trust it. You know, as people, we want to control so much, right? It's like if we're on the street and we're all walking together, you know, and it's 10 of us, 7 out of the 10 people are going to say, hey, man, what's around that corner? Or why do we have to make this turn? Right? Because people want to know and people want to be in control. You go on vacation, right? You wake up, everybody says, oh, what are we doing today? Where are we going? You get in the car. Everybody wants to be in control. They want to know. And when it comes to change, like I firmly believe with change, people are so resilient and so beautiful that it's not that they can't handle the change because people are resilient. It's that people are afraid of change because they want to control it. And more times than not, when change happens, you can't control it, but most importantly, you can adapt to it. And so the reason that I say trust change is because if you trust change, it's easier to adapt to it rather than fearing change. When you fear change, you give change control, right? Like what happened to me? I couldn't control it even if I wanted to. I didn't know it was going to happen. I thought I was in the slot to where I was about to finish out the season and be training for the NFL Combine. I had it. I had my paperwork. That was the crazy part. I had my paperwork from the NFL. And I go out and make a tackle, and everything changes overnight. And instead of saying, okay, I'm going to get into this 2-year process, okay, what's next after that? I said, no, I'm just going to trust the change because it's here for a reason. I'm going to trust, I'm going to adapt, I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to grow with it. Instead of resisting it, instead of running from it, instead of saying, no, I don't want it to happen, because with change comes growth, right? And the comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. People don't like change because change disrupts the comfort zone. And people love their comfort zone. And so I would say trust change.
Boy, Inky, this is good stuff. You are, oh my gosh, well, you are truly a miracle and a gift to so many. We end with rapid fire questions. So I'm going to just fire off a bunch of questions to you and you just fire back what comes up for you. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, man. So one word to describe yourself.
Grateful.
One word others would use to describe you.
I would like to think respectful.
Servant heart, I would say.
Servant, absolutely.
A person who's had the biggest impact on your life.
My mother.
And you take care of her now, right? Inky, do I recall that?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. What's something on your bucket list?
Travel across the country in an RV with my family and just teach my kids about different things across the world, stopping at different historic locations. Me, my wife, my kids, my mother, and my 3 little sisters, and just teaching them about the world. I believe exposure is very important. So that's on my bucket list.
Who's a person you'd love to meet? You've met Oprah, so check that box.
Right. Person I would love to meet, I would have to say Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, he's a stud. Yep. We got to make that happen, Inky.
I know. I got.
He lives in LA, though, so that's a long drive.
Right.
What advice would you give your younger self?
Stop worrying about what's going to happen and trust that it's going to.
Stop worrying about what's going to happen and trust the process?
Absolutely.
So the show's called Game Changers. So one last question for you. Who's a game changer that inspires you and why?
Yeah, my coach that started me playing ball when I was 7 is a game changer for me because he not only helped me, he helped my 3 young cousins. And we all went to college in our family and graduated. I was the first one. But he helped several kids across the area in Atlanta to where he didn't ask for anything in return. He had his own business in construction, very successful, dedicated a lot of time to this park, and he helped a lot of kids become successful. And at the end of the day, he never asked any kid for anything. He never said, man, when you go to the NFL, do this for me. The only thing he ever asked was, when you get in position, I just want what I did for you to do it for another person and pay it forward. I just want you to serve. And so for me, that was a game changer because in my toughest, darkest time of my life, when he said that, it was the catalyst to help me get through that moment of adversity because it shifted my focus and perspective to something that was a lot greater than myself. And
you've lived that out, Inky, and you still do every day. And, I tell you, we can all learn, as you know, as a father, so much from our kids. And when my daughter came home and said, Mom, you got to hear about this guy's unbelievable. He's unbelievable. He's amazing. And she was playing your videos and watching your videos. And you've inspired my daughters. And as you know, as a parent, anything that lifts our kids up is, one of the most important and valuable things in our lives. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for impacting my girls so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me.
And Inky, tell me this. How can people find out more about you?
On that social media, Twitter and Facebook to be exact. That's me on those at Inky Johnson. I think it's a couple of pages on Instagram to where people post my content. I was on Instagram, but it got hacked and then deleted. But my website as well is inkyjohnson.com, and my YouTube channel is Inky Johnson. And so it's all Inky Johnson on everything.
Thanks, as always, for listening to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. There you can listen to previous episodes and leave us a review, which helps other people find out about the show. For more about me, visit mollyfletcher.com. Until next time, stay curious and be bold.